What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Timeless Season 1, Episode 16, Season Finale, The Red Scare. Holy crap! What a cliffhanger! I figured they were going to do some sort of cliffhanger. I figured that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. Because, I don't know, it's kind of like a given. If you ever have a first season of a show, and it's a new concept, it's not really based on, well, obviously the concept of time travel is a used one, but just this story itself, it's not really based on another story as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know. So whenever you have a show like that, most of the time they have to end on some sort of cliffhanger to say, hey, we still have more story to tell. There's still more story to go from here. We're not done yet. So I knew this was coming, but I never could have guessed some of the stuff that happened in this episode. So, first of all, we ended on kind of a cliffhanger last week. Rufus is shot. He passes out. I guess he just sort of woke back up. That was probably the only question I have. He just sort of, all of a sudden they show up back in the warehouse and Rufus is back alive and breathing again. So I guess it was just sort of a, oh no, he passed out, but then all of a sudden he's okay again type thing. So Lucy calls in her fiance from the timeline, and he comes in, patches them up, and that story kind of went nowhere because at the end of it, he's just like, "What are you talking about?" And then she just tells him to leave, and he's just like, "Whatever," and leaves. So maybe that'll be more important next season, maybe not. I don't know, but that one sort of went nowhere. But they go back to 1954, and sure enough, I don't know if it's exactly during the Cold War, but it is during a time where communism is kind of a big deal, and the possibility of communist spies living in America and Russian spies living in America. So that whole thing is going on, and so Flynn gets there first, and he's talking to this guy who's apparently really paranoid about communist spies, and tells him that Lucy and Wyatt are communist spies. So they get captured, and Flynn tells Lucy his plan before he decides he's going to go kill everybody in Rittenhouse, including her grandfather. So Wyatt and Lucy escape. They go track down her grandfather, who kind of, at first I thought this was kind of just a throwaway joke, but they actually turned it into meaning something. But they find him in a gay bar. It was just kind of played up as a joke at first. Like, he starts checking out Wyatt, and he's looking at me like I'm a piece of meat. It was pretty funny. But we actually find out that Lucy, she convinces Flynn to trust her because she has a plan to take down Rittenhouse in the present. And so they bring her grandfather to the time machine to tell him about all this and kind of put him on the inside of Rittenhouse to get data, to write down all the information about Rittenhouse so that they can take him down in the future. And the reason this whole gay bard scene now works is because he's been living a double life before this, because he had a family, but he was also secretly gay. So that kind of entails into the fact that he is the perfect candidate to be a secret agent on the inside of Rittenhouse. It actually works out very brilliantly. And, obviously there's a lot of liberal stuff in the media nowadays. There are a lot of shows that have the gay couple that, oh, we need to be pro this, we need to be pro this, we need to be anti this. A lot of shows do that. This, I like the fact that it wasn't like, they didn't play it up as like oh, you should be pro-gays, and if you're not, you're a horrible person. They just kind of put it in there as, this is what it was like at the time. It was a secret gay bar that they had to go to because if you were gay back then, you were arrested. So, yeah, it does kind of work within the story. It does work as far as his character and him having to be a secret agent. So I really like how they handled all of that. But ultimately, it starts to feel like it wraps up way too soon. And whenever it feels like that, something's on its way. And sure enough, there was a lot on the way. I think I looked at it and there was about 10, 15 minutes left before the end. And they were already, like, they had all the information on Rittenhouse and they were starting to arrest people. I'm like, okay, so what's going on? What's going to happen next? Because we're not done yet. There's still a lot of time left. So there are a few other things that happen before we get to ultimately the big cliffhanger at the end. Gia she goes back on the lifeboat with the team, and Rufus is kind of freaking out because there are 4 people going back instead of 3. So I was kind of wondering, is this really going to mean anything? And he starts like It seems at first like maybe he's just freaking out for nothing. Like he sees some red in her eyes. She's like, I'm bloodshot eyes. That's all. I've been kind of freaked out. And I kind of felt like it was gonna go somewhere because why talk about it this much? Why make it such a big deal if nothing's gonna happen to her? And sure enough, at one point she does pass out. Now the question is, why is it only her? I'm wondering if she wasn't sitting in one of the chairs. If that's why it's affecting her, not the rest of the team, or if maybe it's because it was her first time out. Maybe that's affecting her. But either way, she passes out, and then Rufus is talking to her, and then she starts having a seizure. And so Rufus puts her in the lifeboat. As soon as they get back, he's like, "We need to leave now." So Wyatt and Rufus leave with Gia on board the lifeboat, while Lucy says, "I'm going to work with Flynn and go back on the mothership with him," after talking to her grandfather about the plan. So then after they arrest everybody, we see Rufus is sitting in the hospital with Gia, and she wakes up. She starts talking to him about, she heard how he said he loved her, and she's like, "I love you too." And then all of a sudden, like, her eyes start like spazzing out, and she starts having another seizure. And then all of a sudden, like, we see from her point of view, we see the Golden Gate Bridge, and all of a sudden it flashes, and it's all of a sudden back in time to when the Golden Gate Bridge was being built. And then it flashes back, and she's back in the present day, and it's just like, wait, what? So clearly this is kind of not really a cliffhanger, but it is an interesting story that I guess they're building up for season 2. Something's going on with her. I guess somehow she's connected to the timeline, or I don't know if it's her brain that's time traveling or she's time traveling herself, but something apparently was affected whenever she went on the lifeboat. I'm really hoping that they talk about it a bit more, and I hope they talk about why it's only affecting her, not anybody else that went. But yeah, that was kind of interesting to see that they are building a story with her as well. On top of that, another story that was being built, and I feel kind of bad now because I talked about him so poorly in the last episode, but Connor Mason, it turns out, wasn't fully evil. He was just pretending to be this whole time. We find out he was playing the long game, and so he was pretending to be working for it now, so he was pretending to just play by their rules so they didn't hurt him. And at first I did think, okay, so clearly he's evil and he wants to do this all for his own personal gain. As it turns out, kind of, but it was actually for a good reason, because he uses this software from the NSA that he was talking to the guy about in the last episode to actually track down information about Lucy's father and get everything about him and use that as a prosecution tool against him. So it's very interesting to see that apparently he was on their side the whole time. He was just playing as the good agent until he saw the right opportunity to strike, and then he took his chance. So I like how they played that out. I like the fact that there was a lot more complexity to his character than just, oh, he's evil and wants technology for himself. And then on top of that, we do have the other side story, which is Wyatt and Lucy's little kind of romance. They didn't fully get together at the end of the season, which I'm glad for, but they still pretty much hinted at the fact that they are kind of getting together. He talks about how he should listen to Lucy, how changing the past maybe isn't the best thing. Sometimes you need to see what's right in front of you, talking, of course, about Lucy. I just don't feel like they have to get together. It's one of those things where you could just have a man and a woman in a team, and they don't have to get together. They don't have to have a romance. They could be just friends. Please. I'm really hoping going forward that doesn't become a thing, because it just seems so obvious from the first episode where they don't like each other at all. He's calling her ma'am. She's like, "Don't call me ma'am." And I'm just like, they're going to get together, right? Because that's just the cliche thing to do. I would love to see them not go that place. I would love to see them just sort of keep it as they work together, they're friends, and they appreciate each other, but they're not romantically involved, because I just don't see them working as a couple. I don't. They just don't seem like they fit well. But anyway, that was just hinted at. It wasn't actually done, so that's fine. On to the main plot, though. How it ends, we see Wyatt is getting information from Lucy about the people who killed his wife and daughter, just as Agent Christopher brings a bunch of guys down on him and arrests him. So we see that Flynn is now really, really upset, because he thought he trusted Lucy, he trusted her with this information, he trusted her to do the right thing, and she was going to, but yeah, Agent Christopher just said, no, we're not going to let him take the lifeboat out again. We're not going to let him take the mothership out again. So I feel like that's another season 2 story that they're building up, that he's out for more revenge on Lucy now than just Rittenhouse, because he feels like she betrayed him. And then the other storyline is, of course, Lucy's planning to get her sister back. So she goes home and tells her mom how she had a sister and how she's going to go get her back, and how in that timeline she was sick. And it's a really emotional moment. You could see on Lucy's face just how much it pained her to think about, I'm going to go get my sister back, but I'm going to lose my mom. She's deathly sick in the other timeline. And then all of a sudden her mom's just like, shh, no, no, it's okay. Rittenhouse wouldn't let you go change the timeline like that and hurt me. Just like, damn it. Her mom's in on it too. So yes, big shocking twist. Her mother is also Rittenhouse. Um, I'm curious to see if it's like she was Rittenhouse and then defected, or if she's just another Rittenhouse agent. Her and her Lucy's father split up over other reasons. But yeah, so don't know what this means going forward. Don't know what this means for season 2. But clearly now there's some more stuff going on with Lucy's family, and it's not nearly close to being done yet. So I don't know what season 2 holds. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that this was the season finale, because there's no more future episodes on IMDb. So if I'm wrong about this being the season finale, let me know. But I'm pretty sure this was the season finale, and if so, they did a really good job with this season. So going into final thoughts for the season as a whole, I just really enjoyed the show. I think they did a really good job of making the time travel aspect important and making it fun and inventive, and it's a little bit different. But they also told a really good narrative about this secret organization in the background, and this guy who wants to change the timeline to destroy this organization, but how he's affecting America's history in the process. And so it's a very interesting story, and I love how they just wove it all together. They made the bad guy relatable, but also kind of devious, so it's hard to root for him at times, but you also kind of want to see him succeed at times, because you want to see him get one over on Rittenhouse. So they did such a good job of creating Flynn as a character, but also making Rittenhouse such an evil organization that you do want Flynn to succeed at certain points. And whenever Lucy says she wants to help him, you're like, yes, I want you to help him too. So it was a gray area show. It wasn't black and white. It wasn't like, okay, so I'm clearly cheering for them or I'm clearly cheering for them. You don't really know who to cheer for. Obviously, you cheer for the three that are going in the time ship, but you also don't know who you want to be against. You don't know who's the true villain in all of this. So I love how they handled all of it. The acting overall was really good. Some of the people they got to portray some of the historical figures, I think they did a really good job with that. They also did a very good job of just paying respect to whatever timeline they were in, whatever historical period they were in. It felt very natural. It felt like they were actually back in those times. It felt very, very real. And that, not a lot of time travel shows or movies do that. Sometimes, Legends of Tomorrow, honestly, they do a pretty good job of that whenever they travel back in time. But there are certain times where it kind of feels like the people are talking more modern. They're talking much too modern for it to be set back in a previous timeline or something along those lines. So I really like the fact that in this it was like, we're gonna keep this as close to being realistic as possible, and it was interesting. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing where season 2 is going to go from here, seeing what other plans they have for Lucy and the team, especially seeing what's going on with Gia, because I don't know, that just seems like the most interesting story for me. The fact that she all of a sudden sees the Golden Gate Bridge back when it was being built. It seems like they can do a lot more interesting things with this concept. And on top of that, there's a few things we haven't really touched on as far as time travel goes. One, they still didn't travel back to a time when they were in existence. And there was a lot of talk of, okay, so what would happen if you did do that? What would happen if you went back in time and, like, you affected yourself? What would that entail? Two, they didn't talk about what happens when one of your ancestors dies if you're in the time ship. That's something that I think could be very interesting as far as, okay, your ancestor dies, you cease to exist, obviously, but what if you're in the time ship when all this happens? Are you outside of time? Are you immune to the effects of time? Because obviously, whenever they travel back to the future, they remember a different timeline. So clearly, they're not being affected by the changes in the timeline. So I would love to see what would happen if they traveled back in time. One of their ancestors died. Would that mean that they don't exist in the current timeline, but they still are there? What would all that mean? When they get back, they're gonna be like, "Who's this guy? Oh, this is Wyatt. How do you not know Wyatt?" And he's like, "We don't have a record of a Wyatt." And all of a sudden, it's like, "Holy crap, his grandfather died." So that would be a lot of fun to see. And then the final thing, which I think would probably be the biggest thing they could do, they haven't traveled to the future yet. I want to see that. I want to see what would happen if they traveled to the future, especially considering, if they do travel to the future, are they traveling to a future where this is what's going to happen? Or is this a future that happened and it's like from their point of view now? Because there are a lot of questions you can ask out of that. Like, what would happen? Is this a future that you're traveling to and you never came back in the time ship? Or is this a future you're traveling to where you did and this is exactly what's going to happen? You can't change it. So many good questions, so many interesting things they can do. It really is very well set up to continue on for hopefully a few more seasons. I haven't heard anything about the second season yet. I haven't heard whether it's been confirmed for a second season or if they're just set up for it. But I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What did you like and dislike about this episode? What are your thoughts on the season as a whole? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future timeless reviews. And I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.